Hi everyone, welcome to the March 9th Agent Sandbox meeting. I'm your host today, Janet. Today we have a few discussion topics. The first one is around surety and to talk about the um, refactor of Python SDK.
Yeah, sure. Can you open the link, Janet?
Yes.
Yeah, so I wrote this cap to discuss moving away from the context manager protocol, which we currently have for Sandbox client. So the way today we initialize a Sandbox client and when a Sandbox is using the with statement, which uses the context manager protocol that includes enter and exit methods to instantiate Sandbox and to clean up Sandbox. So we are going to move away from that and keep a flat structure for the client. The reason we are doing this is to basically provide a good support for multi-agent framework where we can instantiate multiple sandboxes uh, seamlessly without having to nest it with multiple, like with blocks. In addition to that, like the new framework also allows us to separate the lifecycle management of the sandbox from the execution plane pretty clearly. And it also gives us the ability to do the capability discovery so that it's very easy for the customers to know what operations they are doing. So for example, if they're going to act on files, either read or write from files, they can have like a namespace engine next to Sandbox. Similarly, like for example, in future, if they want to use a Jupyter client to do stateful code execution, we can have namespace engine for that too. So the major refactor here is actually 3 steps. So the entry point now is going to be a Sandbox client, which is going to be just a layer that is going to vend out a persistent handle called Sandbox object. So the methods inside the client would be pretty simple. It's going to create a sandbox. If the sandbox already exists, we are going to get a sandbox. And we can have other methods as well, like list active sandboxes, etc. The main change is the main core handle, which is the sandbox object itself. So once the sandbox client creates a sandbox, we get a sandbox class. And this sandbox class basically have all the lifecycle management methods like status, suspend, resume, terminate. And we can even add future support for like, say, create a snapshot, list snapshots, etc. In addition to the root object, which we get, we also then specify the execution engines that the sandbox will act on. For example, the commands, the files. And then finally, like the developer experience is going to look like something like what we have below. So you can see it's very easy when we want to instantiate a client. All we want to do is like give all the necessary configurations through which the sandbox needs to connect to. And then once the user says client.create sandbox, we are going to get a sandbox handle back. And then once we get the sandbox handle back, then the user can start interacting with the sandbox through files, through core. And for example, at a later time, if the user wants to suspend the sandbox, they can do it via the root object. Yeah, so those are like some of the major changes. I have done a proof of concept of that and like transitioned it from like the original way. And it seems to be working fine. Yeah, any major concerns for this?
Not a concern, just a question. Is the Sandbox client then, can you create multiple sandboxes?
It can, yes.
Okay.
So one sandbox client can have the ability to create as many sandboxes, and each sandbox will have its own session.
Thanks for sharing. I think it's a major improvement to the SDK. Really like the change. So
Yeah.
a quick question. Are we going to implement this before we add more changes to the SDK, or it's going to be parallel?
Yeah, actually, I was just having this PR discussion with Barney on Friday about like this adding the stateful code execution. So that's actually like a great example of why we need to have this first. For example, if we do add like a stateful method, it's not clear to the user that we are using Jupyter as the runtime. So having like a namespace engine is actually very helpful in scenarios like this. So he actually put a hold in my PR saying we should implement this first before adding new SDK changes.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I also support and like this change. Also, so not if you're going to work asynchronously in the future, I 100% agree. And also, this separation is the only way if you have multiple sandboxes in flight, and I think that the world is going into that. Like, we'll have a model that has multiple sandboxes, tools, sub-agents, skills, etc. So, yeah, that's probably the only way if you have an external model, if it has capabilities of listing sandboxes in a flight or controlling their status, pausing them, etc. So, that's great.
So we have a link to the demo video here. If folks are interested, you can take a look as well. And we should move on to the next topic and about adding the default network policy per Sandbox template. The change is here, and Basante
Yeah.
is Basante. Yeah.
Yeah. So for context, currently in Agent Sandbox, we are generating a network policy for every sandbox claim, which maybe at small scale is fine, but at scale, it's gonna create a huge latency. So this PR is trying to move away from that behavior and creating a network policy per template. And by doing this, we can target all the pods or all the sandboxes that belong to a single sandbox template using a hash of the sandbox template name. And also, this PR creates a secure by default behavior, meaning if a sandbox template doesn't specify a network policy, we are gonna be providing one that allows public internet egress but blocks internal cluster VPCs and metadata servers. All of these can be obviously overridden by the user as long as they provide um, a custom network policy or custom egress rules. Yeah, so for example, if sandboxes are sharing the same network policy, they cannot talk to one another using this secure by default network policy because we're operating on this default deny baseline. So unless we explicitly write a rule that says allow pod to pod traffic within this namespace, your sandboxes belonging to a same sandbox template will remain isolated from one another. And that's like overview of this PR. It's a breaking change. I think it's in a positive way. But yeah, I'm open to any comments or thoughts about this.
Yeah, I think it's a good practice to do secure by default, especially for agent. And so I have a question about the migration or maybe the how we introduce this breaking change. But if we have this after users upgrade, will their existing sandbox starting to the existing template will they have the network policy and then the existing sandbox will be experience the breaking change? or is it only affecting new template and new sandboxes?
It's a good question. It's only gonna be affecting new templates, not the existing ones, as we cannot detect those changes as of now. Yeah.
Barney?
Yeah, I had one question. I think I did ask you before as well. If network policy is not provided in the template, we auto create a policy that's secure by default. We just need an escape hatch for that. Okay. Yeah, so I was wondering if you need an escape hatch for that. Like, for example, if a user creates a template, but then they want to have a policy per pod, or they don't want to have a policy, we need a way of allowing that. This could be the default behavior, and just we need a way of overriding it. It could be a spec or an annotation or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah, the annotation seems like a good approach. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Daniel?
Yeah, hi. I actually wanted to ask if this is a desired behavior for all the sandboxes you can see. Because, for example, we have one application that is going to use a warm pool. And when we are sharing a network policy for all the pods within the pool, so all the pods of this template, it means that we cannot control the egress of a single pod session, for example. So what we are doing at the moment is something like when a sandbox is claimed, the first iterations are usually downloading things like downloading dependencies and so on. Then we are cutting off internet access, and then the agent starts its actual work. So when we would move to sharing a template, it's really hard to do the same.
Yeah. I think expanding on what Barney said, maybe the fastest and more straightforward solution would be to not like have this annotation and opt out maybe of this like default network policy.
This would be great. Yeah.
That actually brings up, sorry to interrupt, that brings up an interesting question. So what you want is when the sandbox comes up, it has to have a certain network policy, and after it is done installing, it needs to have a different network policy. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, that's a little different, but that's good to know.
And I think it might happen for many other people too, that we need to, or that they need to have a way to distinguish sandboxes from each other, also in terms of networking.
Got it. Okay, so we need a more dynamic network policy based on the state the sandbox is in.
Yeah. So what we are doing right now, we are using Cilium at the moment, and we are creating a policy for every pod. And then we are just changing the routes however we need them. And then we have like a global policy that is denying all access to internal networks and so on.
Okay, sounds good. Do you mind creating an issue for this so that we don't lose this?
Sure.
And yeah, thank you.
Just to chime in, hey everybody, the newcomer to the group, I just wanted to weigh or just throw something out there for this security policy. One of the things we're definitely afraid of as we move into untrusted code execution up in Dasta is this exact topic. Right now, we're using VPC peering to bring some of our core clusters together to the Sandbox cluster. And one of the things that we've been making note of is honestly this exact issue from a security perspective of just what is the agent sandbox allowed to do. So this feels bang on, but I do like the idea of having the different routing that was just topic on. The dumb question I had is outside of the agent sandbox website and this repo, do you guys have any of the documentation available for what you're thinking about this, or is it just I just need to myself and team just need to dig deeper into some of these Kubernetes like RFCs that are open here?
Are you talking about the roadmap or?
Yeah, like the roadmap and even some of the specifics of this. Like again, our team is looking to come a little bit closer to you folks to figure out how we can contribute to this as well as we see it being one of our core differentiators this year, and just what you've built with Agent Sandbox is right on par with where we see our growth this year. So anything around roadmap or insights. My apologies for interrupting the meeting. I know it's not what your guys are talking about, but I just wanted to throw that question out there.
Thanks for chiming in. So we have the roadmap published here. For now, it's just a list of backlog that we try to prioritize against. And we try to put everything in the public. So all the proposals are going to either in a PR or issue, or folks can write a cap in here. Under docs, there's a cap that folks can write their own proposals.
That's awesome. Thank you. Sorry for interrupting the discussion. I had missed that earlier. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Any more comments about the network policy? I also see a few message from the chat. So Jesse has a question about the CLAM sandbox function support in the SDK.
I can just dig into the SDK as well. Like we've been using warmed pools versus Create Sandbox. We've got a user in real time as we're spinning up Agent Sandbox runtimes. And so we've implemented our own sandbox manager that's going against the Kubernetes API in Golang. It's honestly a very similar API spec as what I saw on screen. I didn't dig into the code yet, but claiming from a warm pool is something we would be interested in. I was just curious if it had a claiming API as well.
Okay.
Oh, when we say create a sandbox, basically we create a claim right now.
Got it.
From the client's perspective, from the client SDK perspective.
Cool. I think we can move on to the next topic. I think it's from Emmanuel. Is the person here? I think they're not here. Maybe we move on to Daniel.
Sure. So it's going into the same direction as before, about how we are managing sandbox pools. The PR that I linked here is introducing a new mechanism that is basically deleting all existing sandbox pools and letting them be replaced with new ones when the template changes. So similar to, I don't know, a deployment where when you're changing the spec, it will automatically roll out the change so that all pods are having the new spec. In the first implementation, it's just a very straightforward. It's deleting all the pods that are not complying. And the problem is that we have an application that is basically it's an AI dev agent, and it's connected to a product. So we are trying to reduce the latency of starting a sandbox as much as possible. And it's directly connected to the user experience of the on the website. And for this, having like the warm pool is pretty amazing because like everything is running already. We don't need to wait until the pod is set up, it's scheduled, and so on. However, if we would start just deleting all the pods, it would mean that whenever a developer is rolling out a new image to this warm pool, it would mean that we will have some downtime because there is no pods being available for being claimed. And it's not deterministic when there will be a new one because it depends on the image size, how fast the networking is, and so on. I'm just wondering if we can think of a better mechanism to make it more sustainable on the long run.
So, in terms of how you use the wormhole, are you getting the pod through Agent Sandbox, or are you using the wormhole resources directly?
We are getting them through claims.
I see. And then do you care about whether the pod spec match the template from the pool?
No.
The reason that we do recreate is that we believe that the new sandbox targeting the updated template needs to match the updated template. So the old spec is no longer useful. So that's why we want to kill the old ones sooner and then make sure that the new sandbox only grab resource from the new
Yeah,
template.
I can see the point, especially if template changes are including security related changes. But what I see is that most of the time it will be just a new image. So it will be similar to any other deployment in Kubernetes where you're rolling out maybe a new feature, maybe new tooling installed on the image. So there is no need to have it available immediately, or the application should be able to still use the former version to have a smoother rollout.
I think it's good. I'm thinking about the update of the wormhole. We don't currently track what's being updated in the spec. So any change to the spec will trigger a rollout. So if we do this, we're not sure if it's safe to still use the old template. So maybe it's a separate use case. I think that if you're interested, we can implement that in a separate PR.
Yeah,
As a different policy. But I'm wondering if the existing policy will break your use case, because that does imply that the change to the template will cause a recreate rollout once you upgrade to this. But you can mitigate this by not updating the template spec.
Yeah, I mean, we need to update the template spec because this is the only way how we could ship a new image to the pool. We could create a way around it by creating another pool next to it and then shut down the original one. But all of this is very hacky. Maybe it would be possible to, I don't know, create a feature gate or something like this, or have some kind of annotation to disable the feature till then. And then we can follow up with another rollout mechanism.
We can a potential way to do this is to create different rollout policy, and the default one is the current behavior that it doesn't do any rollout until you delete the old sandbox. It will be similar to the delete the old pods. It will be similar to the default behavior of stateful set, and then we'll only start rolling update or either recreate or rolling update in a different rollout policy,
Yeah, that
so
makes
that
sense.
we avoid breaking change.
Mhm.
Right. And I think we have one last topic, but before we move on to this one, there's a request to move the meeting to half an hour earlier so that it's more EMEA friendly. Does anyone have comments about the meeting time that they prefer to stay with this time, or do folks prefer an earlier meeting time? Or maybe
Earlier works, Janet.
like you will be starting from 9 PDT
Right.
instead of 9:30.
9:30.
Is it not working for anyone? Going once, going twice. Yeah, so I think we can move the meeting to 9 to be more Europe friendly. And the last topic, do we have the people here for discussing this one? Yeah, I think we can do the discussion offline or in the PR. Right, I think that's all for today. Any comments from anyone before we end?
Also new here. Where is the transcript of this meeting released?
The transcript is in Zoom. So if you like the transcript, I can upload the link to the transcript. Do you want the transcript?
Yes, that would be nice.
Yeah, sure. I can upload the link. I will put the link to here so that you'll be able to download. I also publish it in YouTube. Right. Thanks everyone. See you next time.
Bye.
And I'll move the meeting.